Well, hello, welcome to I Love Gay today. And today we're with a friend I met years ago, and I'm so happy to connect with you here today. Joseph Fenity, how are you?
Oh, it's so good to see you. Thank you for finally having me, Matt.
Absolutely. No, it was great because I remember when we first connected, we were in Palm Springs, just living large at one of our friends. I think it was like a pride party or a pride event that they were hosting, but we've stayed in touch ever since.
Ah, and I just said finally having me. I say that because I you've been on my radar, and I've been trying to figure out an excuse to get back into your life. And once I saw I love gay today, I was like, okay, here we go.
And not only my life, but then everybody's going to get a chance to get to know you as well because I know you. I've always known you kind of as this independent journalist, but also I knew you. We things we've talked about is you're kind of a new media producer as well, based out of Los Angeles. And but yeah, tell us a little bit about kind of even because I think you got started way back almost 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Well, what's also interesting is I want to point out what you and I talked about a few seconds ago, right before you hit the start button, and it's a really interesting thing that I think is like the new 101 of doing interviews, or a reminder of what's 101 of doing interviews. You said we can't, Joseph, don't talk too much right now because we need to like start recording and do the show, and then we can. And that's my number one thing when I get on the phone or on Zoom with someone.
Yeah.
Everyone just you hit the ground running most of the time, and I go, okay, stop, don't hold on, let me get my pen or let me get my microphone so that we can get the show on the road. So
Because
anyway, that was
otherwise
fun.
you won't want to repeat yourself. So you're like when we then if we have too much fun pre-interview, then on the interview you'll be like giving us short answers, and the audience will be like, "Hey, wait a second, I want more."
Yeah, and you lose the momentum too. At the very beginning, it's this fresh energy. What did Lauren Bacall say one time back in an old interview? You'll never be new like this again. That instant energy that you have, you lose the momentum. So thank you for shutting me up so I could talk to you live here.
But yeah, tell us because I know you were you started life in you were in Austin, but you'd moved out of Austin when you were like what, even as still as a teenager. But I know there
Yeah.
was a big deal with the 9/11 interviews that I was reading about with you.
Yeah, and I'm happy that we're getting to talk about this. And I guess is it now 21 years ago? Am I getting my math right? But that was kind of the beginning, Matt. That was the start of me. What later I figured out was journalism, but I was just storytelling. I've always been a communicator. I've always liked to tell people stories, hear people's stories, and I was 16, 9/11/01.
Yeah.
And I just remember in Texas, like you said, I just remember thinking, okay, there is something huge is happening here. Something huge has happened. Something huge is happening. And I thought, I need to go. I wasn't getting all the answers that I had some questions, and I wanted to know, like, that we were hearing adults talk to other adults, right? It was ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and it was like, okay, it was like when I was 16, it was like old person talking to other old person. And I thought, let's go. I want to dig a little bit deeper and just get some other perspectives. And what was not happening at the time in September 2001 is you weren't hearing from the youth. You weren't hearing from people my age at the time, the high schoolers, the teenagers. And I thought, well, and this has become a theme in my life, Matt. I said, I'll do it. What's that quote? Stop looking for the light and be it. But I thought, okay, let me just go out and do it. And it became an independent study that I did in my high school near Austin, and we turned it into a documentary short film. And I'm glad we're talking about it because just recently, just a few Septembers ago, we finally released it. Do I have here? Okay. They were on little tapes like this because remember, it was 2001, like the 90s were just like what, a few years prior to that. So we had these little tapes, and so we enhanced them, mastered them, and finally, and you can go to 911tapes.org, 911tapes.org, and you can actually hear those interviews that I did with those kids in Lower Manhattan. So it's kind of a way of, these. I wanted these stories to be heard. They were heard, but then 2 decades went by, and I wanted a new generation, new audience to hear them. So for the first time ever, they're finally online and digitized, and it's a special thing.
Can, can you imagine though if you were trying to do the same thing here in today's world, because it's so completely different compared to, holding up that tape reminds me of now there would be so many voices and so many things through TikTok and Instagram and so forth. So what a world that's changed in those 20 years.
I know, and if you look back at the events that day, we've got footage. We had a handful of cameras in a few cities getting stuff, and we've got but it's nothing compared to when events happen now, today in 2023 and 2024. Now the footage would be endless, is endless. So it's weird how I thought I was young. I know I was young. I know you were young, but then time marches on and you realize, wow, things move so fast. So it's kind of it's bittersweet, it really is.
Well, you're really good because you really you straddle those lines too, in the sense that you've had a lot of years of experience kind of creating things and knowing how to, like, in some ways go direct to market, but just be able to kind of create things whether somebody was asked you to or not. But along all those years, you're also you're a professional journalist. You write with Rolling Stone, and I even know you did some stuff here with the LGBT when Metro Weekly. But that's been
Right.
quite a big part of your path as well, right?
Yeah, it really has. And it's interesting that you point out the time and the generation, because my generation, I guess I'm an elder millennial,
Yeah.
but we're the generation that has been involved in all this YouTube stuff and all this digital stuff, but we're also the same generation who we remember dial-up. We know the sound of a dial tone. We can make a long distance phone call with 10 digits. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's been being a 90s kid, it's interesting that we got to straddle, I guess,
Yeah.
is we got to see a little bit of the late 80s and a little bit of now. But yeah, my path has included some really exciting I'll tell you what hasn't worked. That'll probably help people understand what has worked for me. What hasn't worked is the day-to-day 9 to 5 in newsrooms. So I've worked at several TV and radio stations in different newsrooms, kind of bouncing around coast to coast. And what was interesting is that, newsrooms oftentimes, not all newsrooms, but most mainstream newsrooms are limited when it comes to covering something beyond the news of the day. And by news of the day, I'm talking about, the fire down the street, or, finding out why all these ambulances are heading this direction, or school board drama, or police chief misconduct, whatever it is. And if you want something that's beyond that, you have to go to a different platform, or create your own platform, which I've done with josephfenityreports.com. I know you'll probably edit and put up a little thing. But kind of, if you go back to what I was talking about doing in 2001, that was the beginning in a lot of ways of carving out my own path, because the day-to-day newsroom just didn't work for me. Even though it was successful in general, it was like I had stories that I just had to dig deeper. I needed more time, more resources, and I found that in freelance work and independent journalism. And as you said, that took me to LA Magazine and Metro Weekly in Washington, and some work with SiriusXM back when we had OutQ, the LGBT, the at the time the only LGBT news source, radio news source back in the day. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Now I forget your question.
But no, it's interesting because now I get the chance to see everything you're doing over these past few years, because you're very good at posting on social media as well, and including some of the content you create. So it's like you're able to work with traditional media, but you're also kind of, in some ways, very much a new media entity as well.
I know, but then Matt, you meet those people who are like trending on TikTok. I
Yeah.
haven't gone into that world yet. You'll never see me again. If I get in there, we'll never do what I mean, can you imagine? I mean, just
Yeah.
this world that these new younger people, way younger than the two of us, are walking into this world where, no tape required ever. They wouldn't even know what this is if we handed it to them. So it's kind of exciting to see how things are just playing out in totally, truly real time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can you believe that people, let's just say 35, 40 and younger, more and more they're getting their news predominantly through TikTok of all places. It's mind blowing.
Well, it's there's a lot to figure out there. It's really cool that you don't have to go through the original gatekeepers and you can just get that live update of what's happening.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what we'll experience here in this new year of 2024, and I won't go into too much detail because it's like a 2 hour podcast in itself of you and I talking about deep fakes and AI. It's going to get interesting because it's hard to know when something pops up in your feed, wherever you're getting your social stuff from. We used to look at it and go, oh, look, it's a picture of so and so. Now we look at it and hopefully we say, okay, it appears to be a picture of so and so, and you have to look at your source, and it's going to get a little intimidating. I think we're going to have to like get smarter. I don't what Matt, what do we do?
That's the
Oh,
thing. You can't you can only hope for the best in some ways because I know I feel comfortable when I see whether like I see a headline and it looks very compelling. Oh, that I'd love for it to be true. But I do also look at the source right away. And if it's not New York Times or just even anybody credible, I just kind of put it off to I set it aside. It's like it's there, but I'm not really going to dive into it until I start hearing about it a little bit more often from other sources, better quality. And I think a lot of people have their own version of that, but we have to
yep.
hope that more and more do. But at the same time, we know that others don't. And they capture, if they see a headline that speaks to them, they'll latch onto it. They want it to be true.
Yes, I that's the part that I think gets all of us sometimes. And you'll hear therapists and psychiatrists say, you've heard this like everyone has their own version of reality. Now we're seeing it with headlines and I'm going, "Oh God, at the end of the day, true journalism is fact or fiction, true or not true, and there's no different versions of reality, I don't think."
Right.
And so it's we're going to have to I don't know. I feel like we have to stay tuned. I feel that you're right though. We have to keep this like positive mindset, Like that's the way to keep moving forward as the world changes oh so quickly. You blink. Matt, you've seen it in the work you've done. So you
Yeah.
blink and it's like you open your eyes 5 seconds later, it's like, what did I miss? Oh my God, who are all you people? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because that's where I'm enjoying where I'm at now, just because it has been almost 30 years. When I started on the internet. I mean, I was working with Genre Magazine, and I remember, hearing from especially the owner, and he's like, "Yeah, my team wants us to be online, but I think it's like a CB radio, and for him, in his mind, it was just going to be a phase." And I just thought to myself, back then I was younger, and I would just kind of keep it to myself and say, "Yeah, I hear you," and now I'm a little more vocal.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, by the way, genre just brings me all sorts of flashbacks. Oh my God. What great covers,
Oh
especially in the
yeah,
early 2000s. There was
oh
some
yeah.
great, I mean, I bought Genre magazine. Oh, bring back Genre. Where is Genre? But I remember how beautiful those covers were. And sometimes I just bought Genre magazine for the covers. I didn't care what was inside. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I'm talking mainly shirtless ones, of course.
But yeah, the world has changed so much, and so many points in between. But along the way, I know that you were doing a lot of podcasting as well. You're almost kind of a pioneer in that space.
Yeah, and my friend told me this is how much time is changing because apparently that's the theme of our chat today, Matt. But someone said you can't go around saying you're an early adopter. I'm like, oh, that's what they're. Yes, I'm not a podcast pioneer. I'm an early adopter of podcast technology. It's funny when I did my first podcast back in around '05, '06. It had just entered the dictionary. So it was like I was running around the streets of San Francisco telling people, listen, handing out flyers,
Yeah.
listen to my podcast, and people would say, I don't have an iPod. It was like, because people were like, what's a podcast? Is it just a radio show online? Is it like a Windows media player, real player? What is this? And I had to like it wasn't just as simple as handing someone a flyer back then. You had to say, a podcast is when, and I have to explain it. But
Yeah.
and now look at podcast. Oh my, it's like the go-to.
I know, I know. I'm always amazed because I know it's a different market even compared to what I listen to because it's listening to something for like a good 45 minutes audio only. I mean it's perfect for the car, but not
Yeah.
everybody is commuting and so forth nowadays. So I'm very aware that there's a lot of other folks consuming that are kind of I haven't quite figured out and I never really saw that it was going to work so well.
I was surprised too because I think people I was told early on I was told this is not going to work because like they need to see you. And what is this radio? Apparently yes, it is, and apparently no, they don't need to see you. You just need to look good one day, get some good lighting, like I've done for you here. I gotta get some good lighting, take a picture. That's all they need. But it does still surprise me too because I figure that people want. I don't know, like you said, if you're not commuting, but there are people who, while you and I may go to Netflix or Hulu to sit there and watch something for an hour or two, there are people who can put on their headphones, those
Right.
thoughtful people who can look out the window and just listen to a podcast. So it's
That's
it's
not
pretty
me.
interesting. I know you're too you.
Uh,
I mean, look at your logo and your branding and all your colors. It's like, yeah, you're definitely a visual one.
Guilty. And are you gonna start touching more into travel writing as well? Because I know you have a whole new life coming out with Porta Vallarta down the road.
Okay, so I wish you wouldn't have asked that because yeah, probably yes. I knew you'd ask a question that I didn't have on my little note card. I have had this dream
Yeah,
that I haven't acted on. We all have those dreams.
yeah.
And sometimes like when you don't act on certain dreams, they fade away. That's what happens most of the time. Every now and then when you're lucky, Matt, there are dreams that are so meant to be that they just keep emerging and keep bubbling up. And my travel adventures and they just keep poking at me to say, Joseph Fenity, do some travel writing. So in this new year, I know we'll be talking about what we have planned for the new year, but in 2024, my big goal is to get some of my travel content and travel stories out to the world. I'm not a travel writer, but I have ambitions.
Well, Puerto Vallarta is a great place to do it. I mean, it really is one of my absolute favorite, just outside the U.S. locations. I was there for 2 weeks a couple of years ago, and it's such a comfortable place to spend that kind of 2 weeks.
Comfortable is how I would describe Puerto Vallarta. And what do you love about it so much? I mean, you and I are both West Coast, so you and I both have these, if we're lucky, these 2 hour flights or so. If you're not connecting, you've got, I mean, literally, it's like less than 2 hours to get down there sometimes. What do you like about it so much, if I may turn the table and ask you?
No, it's well, I can't say the food. The food is amazing. It is nice because when you're there, and there's so many just nice places to stay within walking distance of that kind of the romantic zone. And from inside, I don't go to I don't go to the bars and clubs as much as I used to when I was a little younger. So they've definitely got that, and that's crazy. I mean, you get there like midnight, and it's insane there. But all the other stuff, you're just walking along, and the gays are everywhere, as well as just like tourists and other people and locals, and it's got a nice balance, and I will say it obviously makes it very comfortable for an American to be there, where you don't really feel too detached, but you're definitely in another country and you feel safe.
Right. You don't feel like you're too far away from home. It's not like, I mean, I've done some travel, like I was in Warsaw and I was in London and Paris. And it's a little bit weird. I don't know if this is a me thing or if anyone else ever feels this, but you look at the map, whether you're on the plane about to land and they show you the GPS coordinates, the interactive map, or sometimes I'll look and when you have to spin the globe, that can give you just as much anxiety as it gives you excitement. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one thing I love about Mexico is I grew up in Texas, as you know. So
Yeah.
always been my neighbor. Here I am in California, still Mexico's my neighbor. So it's always been kind of neat to go. Okay, I still feel I don't get too homesick, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're right that I think the comfortability or the level of comfort is
Yeah.
like you see all I guess different cultures in a way, even if it's just Mexico, America, Canada sometimes, but
Yeah.
you see these different walks of life walking all around each other. Anyone in a big city knows how this goes, especially New York. But it's just so cool to see everyone kind of working in harmony. It's just that's something I love about going down there. It's just
Yeah.
so beautiful to see that.
I'm with you. But no, as we wrap up, any other exciting things you wanted to bring to mind of coming into 2024?
I wanna watch this feed more often. I call it a feed because it's not just a podcast, it's your feed. Um, I try to sound hip and young. You posted on how I did. But I'm just excited to see what 2024 has to bring us. I think we've had we will look back, and I want to end on a high note, but we'll look back. The early 2020s were rough for us. Let's face it. The first part of the 2020s, we've just had a lot going on, just so much. And so I think as we get towards 24, my favorite holiday ever, by the way, is New Year's. If that counts as a holiday,
Right.
I just love New Year's because I like the idea of an automatic reset button. I like a Control Alt Delete in life, if you will, back to a 90s reference. So I'm just excited to see what's to come for all of us. And while I am a journalist and not a psychic, I do have intuition. And let me tell you, Matt, I'm going to break some news here. My intuition about 2024 globally, I have a good feeling. Now, don't Sylvia Brown me and roll this back and be like, okay, he was way wrong. But I really do have an optimistic feeling for the world. I hope that we can like get to a real positive place. It's never perfect, but I just have optimism for all of us. Enough hope for all of us. I'm just glad you gave me the opportunity to do this. I've been watching a few clips, and I've been like, oh, I need the right moment to reach out to Matt and join in. And so because we did meet briefly in Palm Springs a while back, I thought, he's so adorable and sweet. I bet that interaction, I don't get everyone's number, but looking back, I was like, I typed you into my phone. I thought, oh, I've got his number. So I thought, let me make this happen. But thank you for giving me, the opportunity to chat with you a bit. I do hope people go. I'm on what's left of Twitter for now. I mean, I hate to even say go to X, but at Fenity, Fenity, and of course YouTube is
Yep.
/Fenity, and what's left of Facebook too. I don't know where we'll be next. Maybe eventually TikTok. I don't know.
Well, make sure you post it everywhere. So,
Right.
but no, thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Nice to talk to you, Matt. I will see
You
you in
too.
Palm Springs soon enough.
I'd like that.
And it feels good, so good, coming back again.